will give him back to you all of his life. Here again, we can learn from Hannah. We are not to pray vague prayers. Be direct with God. Yes, he knows what we are going to ask for, but he wants us to talk to him, to share our joys and our sorrows. He wants to be our best friend. What an honor. What an incredible opportunity he offers us. Words cannot describe the feeling I had at this statement. Brothers and sisters, we all know, we all want a friend because it's lonely being by ourselves, isn't it? Could you imagine a world where you don't have no one to talk to? You look left, you look right, nobody. I think I will go crazy. But she recognized, as long as you recognize, right, that when your trials and your tribulation comes like Hannah, that the first person you go to is God. And when we recognize that, I believe it will make a big difference in our life. I'm not saying you cannot talk to your friends, yes, but I believe, as I said before, God is the first person. Amen. Prayer is not no expectation for sin. It is no virtue of merit of itself. All the flowery words and our commands are not equivalent to one holy desire. The most eloquent prayers are but idle words if they do not express the true sentiments of the heart. True. But the prayers that come from an honest heart, with the simple ones of the soul, are expressed as we would ask an earthly friend for a favor, expecting it to be granted. This is the prayer of faith. Amen. God wants us to approach him in faith, assured that he cares for us. But then, let's go back to the story. At the time, the people had become corrupted, wandering far from God. Even the priest, the son of Eli, was corrupted. But Hannah's faith was pure. She believed her nation needed an upright man, one who could become a link between God and his people. Was Hannah crying only for herself? Oh no, she was also weeping for God's people. Perhaps because of her burden for her people, she decided that the son God would give her, she would dedicate to his service. This son would belong to God himself. He was to do God's work. He was to become a link between God and his people. While she was praying, Eli the high priest saw her and thought she was drunk. Having a little compassion, he scolded her. But Hannah assured Eli that she hadn't touched wine, saying, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk no wine, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Out of the abundance of my grief, I have spoken. The high priest, deeply moved, blessed her and told her to go in peace. He assured her that her petition was granted. Hannah believed that her prayers was answered. As we read in Hebrew 11:1, no faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. Hannah got up from her knees, and you know the rest of the story. She went back home with her family, and a year later, her baby was born. She named him Samuel, a name that means either ask of God or heard of God. What an appropriate name. During the short time Hannah had a son with her, she dedicated herself to preparing him for the service of God. He was her only son, a special gift from heaven. But she had received him as a treasure, consecrated to God. She would not withhold her gift from the giver. She poured her whole soul into raising her son in the fear of the Lord. Ellen White tells us that the mother power for good is the strongest power known on earth. We're going to take that again. The mother power is the greatest and the strongest power known on earth. Household wisely. In the dignity of her motherhood, her influence in the home is to be paramount. Her word, law. If she is a Christian under God's control, she will command the respect of her children. This coming up from the Adventist Home, page 232. Hannah took her responsibility very seriously. Her cares remind her of her responsibility we have as parents. Her prayer was radical and nurturing. So was her dedication. Prayer, faith, and dedication continue to characterize her life. For Hannah knew that the person who gave all to God would receive more in return. After a few years passed, once again, Hannah traveled to Shiloh with her husband, but what a difference. This time she brought her beloved, her little son. Probably only about 3 or 4 years. At the tabernacle, she took him to Eli, explaining who she was and why she brought her son to him. If I have been Hannah, I might have thought twice about giving my little treasure to Eli. As you have remembered, he had not done a good job with his own sons. But Hannah did not hesitate. Promise was a promise. Amen. God will take care of her precious son Samuel, who had been dedicated to the Lord even before he was conceived. How happy she was to be able to bring her son to serve God. I imagine that she might have an empty ache in her heart when she returned back home, but she did not dwell on it. God had given her a son, and she had kept her promise and given him back to God. God gave Hannah many more children after Samuel, but Samuel was special, her miracle child. Hannah's story probably reminds us, many of us, of a time when we have taken a son or daughter to a boarding school for the first time. It isn't easy to leave them. In fact, we may cry a bit, even though we know they will come home for Christmas or each vacation. Hannah was leaving her little son for good. He would never again come home to live with her. But Hannah was keeping her promise to God. He answered her prayers and she kept her promise. She wanted only that her son might honor God and bless his fellow man. You know, I said, we as parents, we have a responsibility. And if we don't take care of the gift that God gave us, our children, I believe later on we will be held responsible for their action. If we don't tell them and bring them up in God, later on, because most times I see children, who've been in church, they grew up in church and they're out in the world, then I wonder, what did the parents have done wrong to cause the child to go out in the world? Didn't they read the Bible to the child? Didn't they teach their children at a young age, as Hannah did, to have a relationship with God? Parents, I tell you, Hannah is a perfect example for us. Let us dedicate our children, especially the young ones, to the Lord right now. Her faith lived on in her son, Samuel, who was born in answer to prayers, and whose name constantly reminded him of that, became a man of prayer himself. In just a few short years, Hannah had fashioned her son's character in such a way that he became a blessing to the whole nation. God conversed with this little boy from his early years and throughout his life. What a man of God he became. Hannah took her ministry seriously. She made certain that her son knew, even as a child, who he was and why he was alive and who he was going to serve. During her yearly visit, she always reminded her son that he had been promised to the Lord. She took her promise to God seriously and taught her son to do the same. What about you and me? Have we made promises we haven't kept? Our promises to each other?